this is Jo from Math Tutor Me, and today we are going to look at the very beginning of surds, and firstly how to simplify surds. So there's this little rule up here that can help you to remember how to simplify surds. If you have two things underneath a surd that multiply together, you can separate that into two separate surds, and I'll show you how that works now. But to do that, first of all, you need to know your perfect square numbers. Let's go and list them all. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25, 6 sixes are 36, 7 sevens are 49, 8 eights are 64, 9 nines are 81, 10 times 10 is 100. That's probably enough. Those are what we call perfect square numbers, and we need to use those to help us simplify our surds. Now, what we mean by simplifying surds is that we want to take something that looks like this, and we want to make the number underneath the surd as small as possible and use our perfect square numbers to bring what we can outside of the surd. So let's have a look at this first question. Simplify the square root of 32. So to use this rule, we have to find our perfect square number that we can divide 32 by. So you may be good at times tables, you may not be, so you can always use a calculator to help you. So you could type in 32 and I might say I want to divide that by, well, let's try 16. Oh, 16 works, I get a nice whole number 2. If we get a decimal, that means that it hasn't worked and we have to try another number. So 32 is the same as 16 times by 2. Now, using this rule up here, I can change that from being one surd into two separate surds. Square root of 16 times the square root of 2. And then I can square root 16. Because it's a perfect square, the square root of 16 is 4. I cannot square root 2 without getting a decimal number, so I write root 2 after it. And that is a simplified surd. The square root of 32 simplifies to 4 root 2. Let's try it again. We have the square root of 108. So the first thing we need to do is look through our perfect square numbers here and see what can we divide the square root of 108 by. So let's try 16 again. Well, we get a decimal, that doesn't work. What if we try 36? 36 works. We get 3. So I can change 108 to be 36 times by 3. Using our rule from the top of the page, I can break that into two separate surds. The square root of 36 times by the square root of 3. Then I can square root my perfect square. Square root of 36 is 6, and the root 3 sits after it. Now let's just say for a minute that I don't pick the 36 straight away. What if I had picked a smaller number, 108? I could divide that by 4. Okay, so let's just put a little line here. Let's do the question again. Instead of 36, I could have 4 times by 27. Okay, if I break that surd apart, I get square root of 4 times square root of 27, and the square root of 4 is 2 root 27. Now I've done everything, I've done all the right steps, but I haven't got the same answer, and I actually haven't got the correct answer yet because I actually haven't simplified this surd as much as I possibly can. I need to look at this 27 and go, oh, well, actually, I can still divide that by another perfect square. I can divide 27 by 9. Okay, So I would have to do it again. I would leave the 2 sitting out the front, and I would break the 27 to be 9 times by 3. I would break that surd apart. Square root of 9 times the square root of 3. This 2 is just going to stay sitting out the front. The square root of 9 is 3, so I have the 2 from the front. It's going to be times by the 3, which is the root 9. And I still have this square root 3 sitting afterwards. 2 times 3 is 6 root 3. So now I do get the same answer. It just took me a lot longer to get there. So when you're looking for your perfect square number, always try to find the biggest one that works, and that will save you some time and having to do the process twice. All right, so let's practice this some more with having a number at the front of our square root sign. So I'm just going to keep this page here so we can keep our perfect square numbers next to us. Let's have a look at 5 square root 40. Okay, looking through your numbers, the bigger the number the better. I think though the only number that's going to work for this one is the 4. So whenever there's a number at the front of your surd, just leave it there. Break the 40 to be 4 times by 10. Split that one big surd into 2 small ones. Like that. Then we can square root the 4, which becomes a 2, and that times is with our 5. And we still have our square root 10 over here as well. 5 times 2 is 10. Square root 10, and that's as simplified as we can get. Let's try our 68 down here. 3 square root 68. Let's have a look through our numbers. Okay, 36 is not going to work. 25 is not going to work. 16, is that going to work? 68 divided by 16. Nope, that doesn't work. What about 9, 68 divided by 9. Nope. 68 divided by 4. 17. Okay, so leave the 3 sitting out the front. Change the 68 to be 4 times by 17. Okay, break that into 2 surds. Square root of 4 times square root of 17. Next line, we square root the 4 to get a 2. And finally, we multiply the 2 with the 3 to get 6 square root 17. And always just check 17. No, we can't simplify that any further. So that is my final answer. All right, so now we get to the point where it's time for you to have a practice. So if you could have a piece of paper and a pen. To help you out, I've broken this down into 4 steps for you. So the first thing that we do when we do one of these questions is we find the perfect square that's going to help us. And then we split the surd, then we simplify by square rooting the 4 or whatever our perfect square number is and timesing everything together. And finally, at the end, we check to make sure that everything is as simplified as possible to make sure that we don't have to repeat the process like we did in question 2. So what I'd like you to do is pause the video and try these 2 questions, and then we'll go through the answers in a minute. Okay, hopefully you've had a try. Let's have a look at this question. Square root of 75. Looking through your square root numbers, hopefully you found 25. The square root of 75 is the same as 25 times by 3. Okay, then we can split that surd. Step 2, split the surd to be square root of 25 times square root of 3. Now we get to the simplify part. The square root of 25 is 5, and the square root of 3 sits afterwards. And can I simplify that any further? No, 3 is as small as it's going to get underneath that surd, so we're finished. And our second question, let's see how you went with that. So we have our 5 sitting at the front. 54, what did you divide that by? Did you divide by 9? Okay, so let's go 9 times by 6 makes 54. Split the surd to be square root of 9 times square root of 6. And then we square root the 9 to get a 3 times square root of 6 times the 5 with the 3 to get 15 square root 6. And that is as simplified as it gets, so we're finished. So that is the end of my little lesson on simplifying surds. There's going to be more lessons coming on lots of other things to do with surds, so keep practicing and we'll see you next time.